We are back. The offseason is well underway, and the rumors are all over the place. Who said the offseason isn't entertaining, folks? Welcome to the Late Night Baseball Show. It's the evening of November 14th, 2024, and tonight is an all Red Sox night. The new Netflix documentary about the 2004 Red Sox, titled The Comeback, was absolutely can't miss TV, and there is literally nobody, not a person, I would want to talk about this doc more with than Parker, our resident Red Sox fan. Dude, how are you?
I'm on cloud nine, dude. That was the best fucking documentary I have watched in years. I didn't know that I could feel this way about a documentary about the Red Sox. I remember the first time I watched Drive to Survive and Full Swing and all these Netflix style sports documentaries that they've started doing recently. When you bring the energy and the production value that those shows have and make it about the Red Sox, fun fact, it's my favorite piece of media ever.
I mean, that's a great way to explain it. And even not being a Red Sox fan, I was just glued to the screen with this.
Yeah.
It was 3 episodes, an hour apiece, and there was so much in it that we could absolutely talk about for hours. We are going to get into it tonight. There's so many things I know we want to discuss. Before we get way too excited to get into it, Parker, let's go ahead and jump into this week's instant replays, where we talk about some of the biggest happenings in the sport over last week and give you our instant reaction. So, Parker, let's go ahead and start with you today.
Okay, so I'm sure you're fully aware that you have the newly minted comeback player of the year on the White Sox roster.
That's what I hear.
Yeah. As of an hour before recording, it became official. Garrett Crochet is the 2024 comeback player of the year. Well deserved. The guy had a monster season. I think he hit 175 innings pitched. Absolute beast. And you know what? He's the second best available player. Well, we say available in quotes because he's probably on the trade block, but it's not 100% confirmed, but definitely you guys are listening to offers. So he's the number 2 available pitcher with swing and miss stuff that takes place in the zone. So naturally, he's garnering quite a bit of interest. I have a trade proposal for you to bring that man to my Boston Red Sox. And without naming players' names, which honestly might be a little bit of a joke because as soon as I describe them, you're going to know exactly who I'm talking about. But I want to ship you 3 players for Garrett Crochet.
Okay.
Number 1, I want to ship you a player who is in pre-ARB status, who won a Gold Glove this past season, and is currently sporting a .253 batting average. Again, this man is pre-ARB. He hit 15 home runs with 58 RBIs. And last season, he ended the year with an OPS plus of 114. Add that to the fact that he won a Gold Glove playing right field in Fenway Park, which is bigger than any right field in all of the rest of baseball. On top of that, I would like to send you a man who, through the first 3 months of the season, was borderline a Cy Young contender. At the end of the year, he ended up racking up a 4.36 ERA in ARB 1. And what he ended up doing was 183 2/3 innings pitched. And finally, already 2 young guys, but now I want to give you a really young guy. I want to give you a guy who has never had an OPS in his professional career under 799. Currently has an OPS in AAA of 837 and plays premium defense in the infield. Those 3 players, finally putting a name on them. The first one, Wilyer Abreu.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, Cutter Crawford.
Okay, got the second one right.
And the third one is Chase Mydroth.
Okay, that one takes me by surprise.
Well,
okay.
Dealing from a position of strength here, the Red Sox have a significant amount of good infield talent in the minor league system. He is currently the number 11 prospect on the Red Sox prospect list.
Okay, here's my problem. If I'm Chris Getz, our conversation is starting. I know it's not ending here, but
Mhm.
it's starting with people like Marcelo Mayer, Christian Campbell, Braden Montgomery. It's starting there. It's
Really?
starting there. 100%. And here's what I'll say. I First off, I do think what you outline is pretty darn solid. Especially Wilyer Abreu. I'm big fan. I think that's absolutely a get. I think one of the things Getz is looking for is a couple things. Number one, the position player, top tier, high ceiling position player, someone with a lot of control, but specifically up the middle. And then secondly, to balance the scales, a pitcher, which you had Cutter in there, which I think works. But even Cutter, though, like if I look at Cutter, let's see. So how old is Cutter?
Carter Crawford is 28 years old.
Okay, so he's on the older side. Granted, he doesn't have a lot of service time, but still, I don't think Chris Getz has taken Cutter Crawford at 28, even though he has low service time. He's going to be looking for a sub 23-year-old pitcher. So here's what I would come back to you and say. I would say keep all those folks. What if I asked you to give me one of Marcelo Mayer or Christian Campbell?
You can have Marcelo.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now, in addition to that, I need on the Red Sox list, another pitching prospect that's generally in the range of 15 to 20 on your system. And then I need another one or two lower level lottery ticket position players lower in your system. I'm talking like single A and lower. So 4 total players.
So how about this? Garrett Crochet and Luis Robert.
Oh, God.
Hold on.
Okay.
For Marcelo Mayer, Braden Montgomery, and Luis Perales. Braden Montgomery projects as a center fielder.
Yes. I think we are so close. I think you throw in another lower level prospect, like lower level lottery ticket. I think we have a deal there. I really like that.
I like that a lot too. Throw in a Hunter Dobbins.
Yeah.
Jackson Paez, or even like somebody with a potential of very big upside, like a Blaze Jordan, who could play a corner infield position and really hit for power.
I mean, I'm not saying no to any of those. If you're giving me the other three, I mean, that's I don't know how either of those teams say no to that. That's whew.
I just think, and I've been sitting here, and this is why I brought it up first. I've been sitting here thinking about how the Red Sox need pitching. We need pitching, and we are pretty hotly included in the Juan Soto sweepstakes. And if Juan Soto happens, and I'm not saying he necessarily does, but one thing I need Juan Soto to do is not go to the Blue Jays. Even if he doesn't come to the Red Sox, if he doesn't go to the Blue Jays, the way that I'm thinking about this, and I'm stealing this particular trade proposal from another Red Sox podcast that I was listening to today, but what if like a Tristan Casas for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. 1-for-1, and you hopefully sign Vladimir Guerrero to like a 6-year, 7-year extension?
I mean, I know we're spending so much time on this, but this is important. This is where it gets so interesting for the Red Sox, because you can be 2 to 3 smart deals away from having an extremely competitive team, and this is a prime example of that.
Yep.
I mean, could you imagine? Okay, hold on a second. So one of your instant replays today has to do with Juan Soto, so why don't you just go ahead and get that off your chest right now?
All right. Juan Soto's coming to the Red Sox, dude. In my perfect world, Juan Soto, he's very interested in the Red Sox. Let me explain to you why he's interested in the Red Sox. Number one, it's the shortest field down the line to right in all of Major League Baseball. Number two, massive amounts of Dominican heritage on the Boston Red Sox organization. You talk about guys like Pedro Martinez. You talk about guys like David Ortiz, obviously. And then currently on the team, we have Rafael Devers and Brian Bayo, both Dominican exports. And this is the most reaching into my bag of tricks thing of all time. Juan Soto's next door neighbor in the Dominican Republic is none other than Big Papi David Ortiz himself.
Mm. I mean,
for everybody who's not aware, the Red Sox already within the last 48 hours had their meeting with Juan Soto, and all of the buzz coming out of that meeting is it went very well.
and if there's anyone that's going to have a handful of straws, it's going to be Parker. He's grasping the shit out of all of them.
100%.
Which,
100%. I've got a fistful of all the straws, dude. I am ready to sell myself on Juan Soto. I texted you earlier today, for everybody not aware. I had already chalked it up to Juan Soto's not coming to the Red Sox. Don't even get excited about it, because then you will be disappointed later. And I still genuinely think that the percentage level for Juan Soto coming to the Red Sox is somewhere around 15%, like the chance.
I mean, here's the deal, though. Like, if you're the Red Sox, honestly, and I know you feel this more than anyone, these last 3 to 4 years of letting Mookie walk, letting Xander walk, like, they have to pour into another big-time player. Rafael Devers cannot be the only one. They need this. They
100%.
need this.
Yeah, no, the Red Sox are in a unique position where we did lock up our major piece in Rafael Devers for the foreseeable future. We also locked up a couple decently big names in the organization, at least, in Brian Bayo, Cedon Rafaela. Tristan Casas is coming into his own. Hopefully we see a full season of him hitting like he has been whenever he's been on the field. And then we got guys coming up in the system like Roman Anthony is looking like he's going to make his big league debut on the opening day roster.
Yeah.
Now is the time for sure. And the team is getting better with no acquisitions. Like Lucas Giolito is coming in next season. Like it's going to get better, I think, before it gets worse. And adding Juan Soto is immediately one of those acquisitions that, first of all, we haven't made in forever. I do not count Trevor Story as a major acquisition.
No.
And I think that it's something that immediately makes the team a World Series contender. Like, at the very least, a division contender.
And
that's all I want. I just want a season where I get to watch the Red Sox be over 500 the whole time and wire to wire are in some form of contention, not for a wild card spot like I had to deal with the last couple of years, but for the division.
Ooh. That gives me some major goosebumps, and we're going to come back to that because it ties into a lot of what we're going to talk about today. But here's my first instant replay for you guys. Roki Sasaki is Shohei Ohtani all over again, kind of. Okay. Here's the deal. All right. First off, I'm so excited for Roki Sasaki to be posted to MLB teams. Yeah. But here is what's unique about this and what's so similar to Shohei.
Real quick, before we do this, for anybody who doesn't know, he is being posted, and it's going to happen in the next 45 days. That's how posting works.
Yes, and now we will have to wait till after January 15th for him to sign anywhere, but that gives him enough time to make a decision, and here's why he's going to need it. Because he is coming over to the States, not in Yamamoto's situation last year where he's eligible to make $325 million. This is a guy who will be signing a minor league contract with a team, and what he will be making is essentially league minimum if he's in the majors in 2025, and the only thing a team will have to pay him will be international bonus pool money, so around anywhere between 7 to 8 million. So all that being said, you know how many teams should be in on Roki Sasaki?
30,
all 30.
38 teams should be in on Roki Sasaki.
All 38 teams. The Savannah Bananas should be in on Roki Sasaki. But this is why this is going to be so interesting. If you would have told me 6-7 years ago that the Angels would have shined Shohei Ohtani, I would have laughed at you, right? Like, this is why, and a little bias here because I have a team that is a lower level, doesn't really spend a lot of money team in the White Sox. This is a perfect guy for the White Sox. Perfect guy. Absolutely, it's teams like the White Sox, teams like the Rays, teams like the Brewers. He won't go to the Brewers, but that's an example of why this is going to be so entertaining. And I don't know that he's destined for the Dodgers.
Teams like
I don't
the Blue
know
Jays.
Exactly. I don't think
he changes the face of the Blue Jays organization.
100%. And here's why. And this is the last thing I'll say about it. This is why I think the Dodgers are not a likely destination, or the Yankees are not the Yankees, but the Padres aren't a likely destination. It's because when you have a guy coming over to Major League Baseball like that who's making league minimum, where is he going to make his money? In endorsements. He will not
Absolutely.
make a lot of money in endorsements in LA when you have Shohei and Yamamoto there. So I think it is very likely that he's going to want to go to a franchise where he can be the prime Japanese player in the market, that he can rack up those endorsements, and you're not going to do that in LA. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that LA is just going to collect all these Japanese players.
Personally, I still have him going to the Dodgers, if you ask me. But
That's fair.
I do agree, mostly because I think that history plays a huge role, especially when you talk about guys who coming over from Japan. They do enjoy going to teams that have infrastructure to support them. Nobody's going to have a more robust infrastructure to support a Japanese-born player than the Dodgers right now, at least.
Yeah.
At the time, there was a time where the Red Sox had a really robust organizational move toward bringing Japanese players over. When you talk about guys like Daisuke Matsuzaka and Koji Yorihara and Hideki Okajima. But right now, it feels like the home team for Japanese baseball fans is the Los Angeles Dodgers. And no matter where Roki goes, that doesn't change.
No.
But at a guy who's 23 years old, who probably recognizes that he needs veteran leadership in his own clubhouse, especially guys that speak his language, you're not going to find a more robust Japanese starting rotation than you will find in Los Angeles playing in Sanchez Ravine right now.
The point's a good one. You know how there's those maps of the United States where it's color coordinated based on where the fandoms reside? Well, guess what? Los Angeles's map is Southern California and the whole country of Japan.
The
That's just
entire
what it is.
nation of Japan, absolutely. Yep.
Go ahead, Parker.
All right, so my next instant replay is kind of a hot take. Now, to give a little context before I get into it, we recently, within the last day, again, breaking news today, the Tampa Bay Rays will be playing their home games in 2025 at Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, Florida. That is 30 minutes from their current ballpark. They are paying the Yankees $15 million so that they can play there for the year. Here's my take. Major League Baseball has, in the American national sports spotlight, been relegated to a level that is pretty significantly above, but not as significantly as I think baseball fans think. They've been relegated to a position pretty significantly above the MLS, Major League Soccer, as far as viewership numbers go, as far as engagement numbers go. And one thing that we've seen has been one of the premier attractions for the MLS are teams that have dedicated smaller home fields. And I think that these home fields that we're going to see the Rays and the Athletics play at over the next year or so are going to shed light on the fact that having a packed house that is a smaller size has a lot more levity than playing in Tropicana every day to the tune of 4,000 fans. I think that showing a broadcast with a smaller packed stadium has more marketability than an empty, larger stadium, because it's a recipe we've seen work with the MLS. The MLS is currently the most popular sports organization among young fans between the ages of 18 to 25 in the United States. It may not feel that way because a lot of us are older than that, and a lot of us watch baseball in the NFL, and that's about it. But when you look at the two most successful sports organizations among young fans in the MLS and the NBA, they both play in small, homey, packed stadiums that you find all over the country. And I think that plays to those sports advantages when you can pack the house more often than not.
Okay, this is very interesting, and I don't really know how to respond. Here's what I'll say. Two things. Number one, this is such a big conversation. I think eventually we need to have it and dedicate a large chunk of time to this, because this is pretty fascinating what you're bringing up. Now, I'll throw some facts and data behind what you're saying. And, if you go back to some of the more recent, newer ballparks in Major League Baseball, my first thing I was thinking in my head is, wasn't baseball already starting to do this to a degree? And if you look at
to a degree, yes.
To a degree, right? So if you look at some of the ballparks that were built in the mid 2000s, so Citizens Bank Park, Busch Stadium, Nationals Park, those stadiums averaged about 43 to 45,000, and then you kind of go forward 6-7 years. Some of the newer ones like Lone Depot Park, Target Field, they're at 36 or 38. So I think they and this has been in the discourse where I think these teams have went in that direction, but what you're saying is really a dramatic shift in that direction. So
yeah, and I don't think that every major league team should build a minor league ballpark, but I do think that especially as these more premier destinations get older and start being replaced, as you see bigger market teams start building new stadiums, I think we're going to see them fall in that line of like the 35 to 40,000 stadium capacity. And I think that plays in baseball's advantage. Number one, because you could pack the stadium full of like scenic and like super intriguing amenities, things like in Target Field, we have those cool overhangs and stuff like that in Minnesota. Yeah. I think that we're going to start seeing stuff like that to bring people to the ballpark. Because what's the number one thing that you talk to non-baseball fans that they say is their problem with baseball? It's boring, right?
Yeah.
Well, I also know that, or at least it seems anecdotally to me, that non-baseball fans are more likely to go to a baseball game than they are to go to an NFL game if they're not an NFL fan, right?
Yeah.
Tickets are cheaper. And the ballparks are generally a little more appealing because there's more stuff to do, downtime to go explore and kind of be in the environment of a baseball stadium. Whereas if you're at an NFL game, you got 15 minutes during halftime, and that's about it. You're sitting in your seat the entire rest of the time.
Wow. I mean, this is I'm going to put a pin in this one. This is something we need to come back to because this is I'm like you. I'm obsessed with ballpark stuff and how they're constructed and all that goes into it. It's super fascinating. But you got me thinking, Parker. I really have to sit on this one for a little bit.
I think that there is a non-0% influence that packing the house and selling out 500-something consecutive home games that the Red Sox did back in the late 2000s and early 2010s and stuff like that. I think that has an impact on the appeal of the team because that noise, even just like the raw noise in a stadium, is going to feel bigger when the house is full, right?
Correct.
So when you look at the most longevity in a stadium, you look at stadiums like Wrigley and Fenway, and their capacities are in the 30,000s.
Mm-hmm.
I think that has something to do with it. I think that's part of the appeal of feeling like you're on top of the action, feeling like you're in a house that's cozy and you're watching a game and there's stuff to do around you.
I would have to agree. That's a really good point.
What about you? I know you got at least one more of these instant replays.
Yeah, this is the last of the instant replays today, folks. I need to share this with you all. I literally do not give a shit about the all MLB teams. There, I said it. I don't care. We're all big baseball fans here. I don't care. It's a participation award. Why they have an MLB first team and second team, I don't fucking know. I think it's pointless. Why can't we just do the MVP, the Cy Young, and all these? If you want to give more awards,
we already have a shit ton of crazy awards.
Right, we already have awards. Do more awards, but this whole like all team like Pro Bowl, NFL Pro Bowl style, like I don't care. It's a waste of time. I don't know if the players care. I'm sure they do to some degree. If they get it, congratulations. But I can do without it. Quite frankly,
I can tell you exactly who cares. Agents
Major
care.
League Baseball and agents. Yeah.
Agents care.
True.
Because when Jarren Duran's contract comes up and it's time to talk extension or talk free agency, he's going to bring up the fact that he was just named to the second team All MLB.
Yeah, right. Look at this really nice second place ribbon I got. Cool.
You know what that means? That means he's the second best center fielder in baseball, and I'm going to wear that like a badge.
That's fantastic. And you know what? He deserves it. He deserves it. But here's
over 8 WAR last season.
And that's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. There's a slim amount of players that can regularly get on over 8 WAR, let alone 6 or 7 WAR. But here's the deal. This is my litmus test for it. I don't get excited about it. I don't watch it. I don't follow the news on it.
I don't remember it after the offseason.
No, not at all. And I think there's just better use of Major League Baseball's time and recognition structure than this.
Yeah, let's get a head start on the CBT, and let's get a head start on the collective bargaining agreement and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's instant replay for today. Sorry, folks, that went 25 minutes. We were fired up. We were fired up for this instant replay. We didn't give you an instant replay. We gave you the whole freaking ball game.
Yeah,
holy crap. Oh my God. All right, so let's get into why we're really here and what we're really excited to talk about today. So, ladies and gents, new documentary on Netflix, The Comeback. It's about the 2004 Boston Red Sox in their triumphs and tribulations against the New York Yankees. And really, the documentary took us from kind of the beginning of the 2003 season through that season and into the 2004 season, including both the playoffs. I mean, Parker, I know this meant so much to you. We both watched it. I'm telling everyone now, if you haven't watched it, we're going to talk about everything in some detail.
Spoilers for 2004.
What spoilers if you actually want to watch it, not having heard about anything that's in it, because it is chock full of goodness. My first question for you, Parker, let's just dive into it this way. What were your first impressions having seen the 3 hours of this documentary?
My first impressions coming out of it was like it was a reminder that in 2003, 2004, the Boston Red Sox created an identity for themselves that to this day, the city of Boston identifies with and continues to almost imprint that image onto every single ball club that they have put together and all of the fans that go to all the games and watch 162 games a year. It was like watching a biker gang playing Major League Baseball. It was like watching a scrappy group of like high school wrestlers with baseball bats in their hand, ready to scrap at any point in time and fight and claw no matter what the odds were, that they were going to break this curse and they were going to bring a championship to the city of Boston. And one thing that the documentary tried to do, and I think this was in an effort to lend the 2004 Red Sox a little bit of credibility, but they started to like create personas around players that may or may not have been viewed as big name acquisitions at the time back in 2003 and 2004, but became icons in the city of Boston just purely for what they brought to just the clubhouse. And I'm talking about a guy like Kevin Millar, who will never pay for another drink in the city of Boston, but if he had spent his entire team playing for like the Minnesota Twins, we may not even know his name. But because he did it in Boston and he was successful in Boston and they won that World Series, Kevin Millar is a name that you say his name to me, I know exactly who you're talking about. I watched Intentional Talk as a kid only because I loved Kevin Millar. And that's how I fell in love with a lot of other baseball personalities like Chris Rose and everybody that they had on the show. But I think that all stems from this environment that existed in Boston in the early 2000s that ended up breaking the curse of the Bambino and just becoming this, like, you talk about great baseball rosters, you're never going to talk about the 2004 Red Sox as one of those great Murderers Row type rosters. But in Boston, those 2004 Red Sox are the patron saints of fighting when you're out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best way to explain it is, for me, I felt the same way. It was very apparent throughout the documentary that the Red Sox are Boston and Boston is the Red Sox. I mean, it is what it is. Like it's almost like a baseball imitating life and vice versa, because you explained it perfectly. The personality of that city is totally ingrained into what that team certainly is today still, but no greater than in 2003 and 2004. I mean, and that's what I've always personally really loved about baseball, just generally. Like, even for me, like there's a reason why I gravitated from the Cubs to the White Sox in my fandom, is because the Cubs here in Chicago, the Cubs are the Yankees, right? They're just the upper class, buttoned up sons of bitches that you want to see lose, whereas the White Sox and their Sox brethren, the Red Sox, are the team that they're grinders. They're not going to take shit. They're going to overcome all the odds against them. And I mean, this is it just brought me back to that feeling for me of like going for the underdog. And it's funny that this actually happened right before the White Sox ended up winning their World Series in '05.
I was just going to say, in 2005, the next year, the White Sox won the World Series.
It's pretty incredible. But anyway, going back to the Red Sox, it brought up a lot of memories for me and a lot of, honestly, childhood memories, because I mean we're about the same age, I'm pretty sure, and so in 2003 2004, what we were like 10 11, I mean this was like
I was 9 in 2004.
It was like the thick of baseball for us. Like we were doing little league, we were like so into it as kids. Like when you're a kid and you love baseball, this was the heyday for us of baseball.
Yeah, man, I remember being a kid and playing triple play baseball on my PlayStation and playing Little League baseball and checking the results. I was watching, like, when I was a kid, I've told this story a couple times. I don't know if I did it on the pod. I used to watch the MLB game day. I wouldn't even watch the broadcast because we didn't have MLB TV. I could only watch nationally televised games. But I would sit there and watch I would hit refresh 700 times to watch the pitch-by-pitch updates of Red Sox games back then. And I remember my mom making me go to bed the night before and not being able to watch the ALCS games. And I specifically remember the morning of the World Series victory for the Red Sox, the morning after they won the World Series in St. Louis. And the front page of MLB.com was Johnny Damon. And I remember like knowing that the front page picture would be of the team that won. And so I remember typing in MLB.com, hitting enter, and up pops this picture of Johnny Damon, and I sprinted through I didn't read the headline. I just sprinted through the house screaming that the Red Sox had won the World Series. And like, that is a foundation. I remember the place in that house. I remember asking my mom to get off the phone so I could use dial-up to pull it up. Like, we still had dial-up at my house, at least. Yeah. It's so many memories for me.
It ingrained and imprinted so much on us. Like, not even being a Red Sox fan, I remember it vividly, and being excited about the players and the names and the personalities, right? That this is one of the first times to this degree, I think, that a team has imprinted themselves nationally, not even in their home city, but that we got to know a lot about these personalities. And I'll give you an example. Like, for me, Nomar Garciaparra was one of those. Like, for me, like, I mean, guys, I was obsessed with Nomar when he was with the Red Sox. Like, it's the reason I wore number 5 in Little League. It's the reason why I played shortstop. It's the reason why I was the loser kid with 500 armbands and sweatbands on my arms, right? Because I loved Nomar. And when he came to the Cubs, when he was traded to the Cubs in '04, I was the happiest kid in the world. I was freaking out to this day. And he was just a big part of me growing up being a baseball fan. So, I mean, that brought that back to me and learning about Nomar's personality, because here's, and I know we're jumping around, but this is very exciting because we're just being nostalgic here. But here's something that I appreciated watching this that I didn't appreciate ever before about being a baseball fan. Like, when we were kids, we cared about watching the games, seeing cool shit. That was it.
Yep.
Like, now, for as deep as we get into it, talking about the business side of it, the transactions, the personalities behind the scenes, there was shit in this documentary that as a kid I never thought about. And it heightened the experience for me. Like, things that I was like, holy shit. Things about Theo Epstein, things about A-Rod, things about what was happening in the clubhouse, things about like Grady Little and him being absolutely worthless. Like these
First
things.
of all,
like, I didn't
Grady Little is the number one villain in this documentary. Every time they ask him a question, he's like, I don't fucking remember that shit.
You're right. Well, no. Well, it's funny because he selectively did not remember the conversation he had with Pedro when he took him out. Yeah, okay. Not buying that.
Yeah, okay. And then the last thing he says is like, I'm fucking out of here in his interview. He knew that he was not being... Credit to him for going on the documentary, because this is the first time I've ever heard of him speak of that moment.
Yep.
He had to know he was going to get lit up. And Yeah, Grady Little was definitely the villain for me in this documentary, which is crazy considering A-Rod and Jeter are prominently featured as well.
Totally, totally. I mean, so tell me, I know Theo Epstein was a big part of this documentary, and I want to talk about Theo a bit because Theo is without a doubt one of my favorite people in the sport of all time. And
I think it's safe to say that the sport exists in the form it does now in large part due to him.
oh, 100%. I mean, you go back to this in the documentary, they start off with, I mean, within the first 10 minutes, talking about how, the Red Sox, John Henry was literally popping champagne in the front office, hiring Billy Beane. Billy Beane rejects the offer, and they hire Theo. And wow, are we not happy that they ultimately did that? Can you imagine a world where Theo was not chosen for that role at that time?
I challenge everybody who's a baseball fan and wants to watch this documentary. Watch Moneyball first if you got a couple hours to spare. Watch
Yes.
Moneyball. And the last seconds of Moneyball, once it ends, as soon as the credits hit, turn it off and turn this documentary on. Because it
Yes.
picks up at the moment that Moneyball ends. And I had no idea that they had gotten to the point of popping champagne and counting him basically as the general. He talks about in the documentary, he sat down and was talking ball basically as the general manager of the Red Sox for a good night or two with Theo Epstein as his assistant GM. Like he was making projected moves, he had opinions, he wanted to change certain things, and I had no idea that it wasn't until he was on the plane and even gotten home that he made the decision, I don't want to be away from my daughter this far away. And then calls John Henry, says, hey, I know we popped champagne, but I'm going to have to turn the offer down. You should pick Theo. And to me, that's like, oh my God. First of all, he is, at that point in time, the king of what everybody assumed was going to be the next big thing in baseball. He was the Moneyball guy. What his word was Bible because it clearly worked. And what if we did his philosophy along with a $200 million payroll? And when that guy goes, no, Theo's got it, and then the Red Sox take that advice and make Theo the general manager, I had no idea that's how it went down. And to me, it's like, perfect that this guy who pioneers this new version of baseball really agrees with this random dude who played high school baseball with Sam Kennedy in Boston, and he ends up in the assistant GM position and ends up becoming the GM that breaks the curse of the Bambino, and then the GM that breaks the curse in Chicago.
But here's the thing with this. God, this is just not even a baseball thing. This is just a life thing. How things happen, and they have to happen so perfectly for the outcome that we all know and appreciate. Like, think about this. Let me paint you a scenario where Theo Epstein comes into this role at 28, mind you, and he makes these moves that are really outside the box, right? The documentary made it clear, like going after Kevin Pillar was not, or Kevin Pillar. I love
that he played in Boston at one point too.
I know that's definitely not who I meant. What I meant was Kevin Millar. Imagine going against conventional wisdom. Kevin Millar was signed with the Japanese team, and they say, "Oh, sorry, we're going to claim you." Everyone was pissed off. They did that move. Imagine taking your prime fan favorite player, Nomar Garcia-Parra, trading him for, at the time, were two lesser known guys that people had doubts about. And imagine if they don't win that World Series. Like, imagine, does Theo get another job?
In the ALCS.
Right. Does Theo get another job? Does Theo do this with the Red Sox? Does he ever get to that point? Well, he wouldn't have gotten the Cubs job. He doesn't do that with the Cubs. Like, Theo becoming the absolute legend that he is in this sport only happens because of what he did in the CS in 2004 with these Red Sox.
And I think that becomes an even more important watershed moment if what I think a lot of people want to happen actually happens. And I think Theo Epstein has not said it outright, but it's pretty much well known at this point that his goal eventually is to become the commissioner of baseball. Personally, I don't know if there's a crazy great chance of that happening because they like to get labor lawyers and stuff like that into that position.
Yeah.
But he is a very, very well-known and respected icon in the entire game of baseball at this point. And if he does end up becoming the commissioner of baseball, again, what happens if he gets swept in that CS? What happens if he actually holds on to Nomar? And okay, I enjoyed this perspective that it gave in the documentary, but Nomar at the time was kind of being a whiny sack of shit. He was, and like, honestly, pretty well deserved, because your team just tried to trade for your replacement right in front of your face. Some teammates go on national TV and say, I'll take A-Rod over Nomar. Like, I don't know. It's just such a crazy world if things like the A-Rod deal happen, if things like all this stuff.
See, okay, so there was a number of things in here that surprised me, and I want to talk about that for a little bit, because one of the things that surprised me, again, being a young kid, not following the sport with the front office stuff in mind, I was so shocked to learn how close they were to getting A-Rod. I did not realize that. Shame on me for all this time not realizing that.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing was done. That would have changed everything.
Yeah, 100%. For those of you who don't know, A-Rod to the Red Sox is the Chris Paul to the Lakers in modern day sports. Like, it was shot down by the Players Association. It took a veto to make this not happen. It was done. Alex Rodriguez was going to be on the Boston Red Sox, and then the Players Union shot it down. And it just, the world we would have lived in. Like, what happens if Alex Rodriguez is David Ortiz's career in Boston as long as it was? Because people, I don't think, realize David Ortiz signed basically 1-year deals for the last 7 years he played in Boston.
Yeah.
There's a good chance one of those deals at the beginning doesn't even happen if Alex Rodriguez is still in the roster and taking up a DH spot half the time.
Wow. I mean, that also, this was totally brand new information, not even heard a lick of this in the past, that Nomar Garciaparra was almost traded to the White Sox. I was like, God damn, get out of here.
Could you imagine? Oh my God.
That is crazy.
Yeah,
wow.
It's crazy. And then Nomar left the Red Sox, and he wasn't a shell of his former self, but he was never the superstar he was in Boston.
No.
Not after that.
There's some players in our sport that are so attached to a team that their whole career is defined by that. And unfortunately, I think Nomar is one of those guys. I mean, wow. I think a modern day example of that is Max Scherzer. He's been good since he left the Nationals. Yeah.
But his career in a lot of Detroit, but mostly the Nationals, probably because they won the World Series and he almost threw a perfect game and all that stuff. I think he's in my head, Max Scherzer's a National.
Yeah, 100%. What was there anything else as you were watching this that kind of took you by surprise?
Yeah, I didn't know they were doing shots of Jack during the ALCS. That's crazy. Even David Ortiz said they hit, or was it Millar? No, it was Ortiz. Ortiz was like, they hid the bottle from me because I was definitely doing more than one if they hadn't hid the bottle from me. And they're doing shots of Jack in the clubhouse a couple hours before first pitch, if not right before first pitch.
This is a must-win game.
This is a team that later down the road had a huge scandal for eating fried chicken in the clubhouse.
That's right. Oh, I totally. Oh, that's funny. That is funny.
I couldn't believe that.
Man, I just. The most incredible thing about it is I didn't realize, and obviously maybe you don't realize it if you're not a fan of the Yankees or the Red Sox, but wow, I mean, this rivalry, I knew it was big, but this really put it in perspective for everyone. It kind of reset everyone to understand why this is such a big deal. And this is why when I look at present day and think about Juan Soto signing with the Red Sox, holy shit, that would be huge for this whole Red Sox-Yankees conversation if they lose him to the Red Sox.
Yeah, I mean, these players fucking hated each other, dude. They hated each other's guts. Roger Clemens looked at the Red Sox as this team that didn't want to. He even says in the documentary, didn't want me in the twilight of my career. Well, twilight was a lot longer than you thought.
Yeah.
could not believe the level of vitriol that existed from all of these guys. They couldn't wait to fucking fight each other. And then you look at stuff like the Zimmer-Pedro fight. Like,
oh, yeah.
Like, Zimmer was a coach for the Red Sox for a long time. To turn that relationship sour takes a lot of hatred.
Also, Pedro. Let's talk about Pedro.
Pedro's an asshole.
Okay, I'm glad that you said it, because that's essentially what I was going to say. He's very talented.
He's my asshole, but he's an asshole.
Correct. He's like obviously one of the best pitchers of all time. But wow, what a prick! Like, seriously.
Oh yeah.
Like, he's the guy you just love to hate.
100%. And back then he was so necessary, though. Not only because he was a very good pitcher, but back then if you got hit by a pitch, especially up and in, you needed a guy in your rotation to kind of set the record straight with the other team, because it was happening again. You would get bullied in baseball games. It does not happen as much, if at all, in today's game. But Pedro was hitting multiple guys in retaliation for accidentally hitting one guy. Like, it's crazy the way that he played the game.
Wow. I will say one of the things I was surprised by, which I appreciated learning more about, was the conversations that went into Schilling's ankle injury, because I didn't know they did this Frankenstein shit.
Well, I actually did know that.
On his ankle.
That in 4 days in October.
I was shocked. I was shocked that it was like a one-time experimental surgery, and Schilling was like, "Yeah, fuck it, let's do it." Yeah, all right.
The day of the start.
Wow.
Yeah. That's great. There's a good scene in 4 days in October, and I kind of hoped they would kind of recreate it in the documentary, but they didn't really. Where Kevin Millar talks about walking into the training room after the surgery happened on the the massage table in the training room, and there's just blood everywhere. His ankle looks totally gory and fucked up, and then Millar's like, "I can't believe this guy's gonna pitch today," and Schilling just walks out and starts warming up, like it didn't even happen. And look, I'll be the first. I'm a Red Sox fan to the day that I die, and fuck Curt Schilling. Okay, the guy has definitely made himself not an enemy of the city of Boston, but maybe a little bit in recent years, because at the end of the Red Sox documentary, or the end of the comeback, you hear about how Tim Wakefield passed away. He was not part of the filming of the documentary, and he passed away from brain cancer, and he passed away pretty suddenly, at least it seemed to everybody in the Red Sox circle, and that was because he was very private with his health matters, which obviously, if you want to be private about your health, that's the thing to be private about, man. Nobody has a right to know what's going on with your own body, and the reason that everybody found out about Tim Wakefield's cancer, his brain cancer, before he passed away, was because Curt Schilling tweeted about it and laid all of his personal stuff out there for everybody to see. And like, I love Curt Schilling for what he did on the ball field, but man, after his time on the diamond, he definitely has made a heel of himself as far as the baseball world's concerned.
Yeah, he really has, and you hate to see it. I mean, we can go on and debate all about, like, ethics and values and what should weigh against someone in a Hall of Fame case. Obviously, writers feel like there's a lot that goes into a Hall of Fame argument than just what you did on the field, clearly. But but in that case with Wakefield, that was tough, and I will say, it got me. Like,
dude, I cried at the end of that documentary.
I definitely, like, and obviously, I understand why you would have, but even me not being a fan of this team, the whole Veritek talking about Tim Wakefield really got me.
They are, this is gonna get me emotional just talking about it. Veritek, like, pseudo-adopted Wakefield's children in the wake of Tim Wakefield passing away. Both of the Wakefield parents have passed away now of cancer. Yeah. And the Veritek's, Catherine Veritek and Jason Veritek, have become de facto parents to these children, who are no longer children. They're grown adults, but still, like, that relationship exists. And so, like, at the end of the day, we all talk about people that are really close to us in our lives, and we use a lot of words to describe them. We talk about brother, we talk about family. But at the end, they asked Jason Veritek, who was Tim Wakefield to you? And it's what makes Veritek choke up in the middle of filming. He just says, he was my friend. And I think we all have hopefully all have at least one of those friends that if something like that were to happen, it would make us feel that kind of way. And it's not often that you see a relationship born in a sport take that form and take that level of prominence in people's lives.
That's true. And I'll say this, I think one of the things that I got out of this more than anything was when you are in a sport environment, when you are in a team environment like this, and I know it's a buzzword. I know people don't want to hear it, but it's absolutely true. And Kevin Millar actually speaks to this very briefly. He talks about trust and all the trust that they have in this group of guys. And if you look at the most successful franchises and the most successful teams, if you look at, my day job, I'm in HR. I've been in HR for 10 years. I'm big on culture and building teams and how to make successful teams. And this is a real thing. You cannot have the level of success the Red Sox and other teams have had without a strong environment built on a foundation of trust where the culture is just immensely strong to handle the trials and tribulations, which is what this team did. You go back to every successful championship team that performed at that level, they all have that in common. That's not hard. That's not easy to do. That's really hard. Some may even call it catching lightning in a bottle and just hoping and praying it works. Sure, whatever. But this really goes to show how important in this sport particularly it is to build that culture.
Yeah, no other sport do you have to play every day. In no other sport do you see no other sport, but not many sports to the extent of baseball do you spend more time with those players than you do with your own family. And you look at think about historically successful teams. You talk about, the early 2000s and late 90s Yankees, and we talk about all the people that were a big part of that team for over a decade. You talk about the 2016 Cubs. You talk about the Big Red Machine. These are all eras and franchises that had sustained rosters that built a bond over years and years. And because of that bond, it becomes personal. Your buddy strikes out, you want to cover up for his mistake and hit a double. Your buddy gets hit, you want to go out there and drill the next guy to kind of set the tone and make sure you're protecting your guys. It's pretty remarkable the bond they were able to form and how quickly they were, considering how many of those players joined like a year or two before. And I think that, we've seen this a couple times in the Red Sox franchise history. We saw it in 2004. We saw it in 2013. Just a roster coming together and forming a brotherhood very quickly. And, 100%. You can't speak to the power of it.
I have to ask, hey, if you could sit down and have a drink with one of these guys and just ask them a shit ton of questions after watching this, who are you sitting down with?
I thought about this for longer than it may seem, given my answer. Because there are a bunch of guys on that team I wish I could sit down and have a drink with, but I think that the obvious answer is still my answer. I think it's Kevin Millar. You definitely I want to sit in Kevin Millar in his house or even just at a bar, buy him a shot of Jack, and just get him talking because he's going to talk, and just let him wax poetic about the glory days for a while and sit there and just soak it all in.
Man, there's no denying that. I love what Theo's. I'm trying to remember exactly what Theo's line was in the doc, but he said something like, "There's nothing that Kevin's thinking that's ever goes unspoken," or something like that.
Yeah, and that was right before he talked about wanting A-Rod on the team rather than Nomar.
Right. Man, if I could sit down and have a drink with anyone, I'm kind of stuck between two. Obviously, Theo's the obvious choice because I just have an appreciation for just everything he's done and kind of his leadership style. But I really want to know more about Jason Varitek. I want to know more about the quiet guy. I want to know more about the quiet team leader. This is a guy that I think has so much quiet leadership qualities that is going to make him hopefully a manager one day. I really see him being a really successful major league manager. Man.
Jason Varitek, this might be a hot take. I don't think he'll ever be a manager. And let me explain why. Jason Varitek plays his entire career with the Boston Red Sox. Jason Varitek holds the record for most no-hitters ever caught by a catcher. And Jason Varitek is the last captain that the Red Sox have ever had. Not to say there won't be one in the future. Mm-hmm. But he is such an integral part of the Red Sox system and the Red Sox brotherhood and the Red Sox team that he makes manager money to be a bench coach. And actually not even a bench coach. He makes manager money to be a gameplay coordinator.
Yeah, right.
He's a vibes guy, dude. He's a leadership presence. He's just Coach Tech.
That's
and
fair.
I don't, and he hasn't said this out loud, but the general consensus among Red Sox fans is that he won't ever be the manager of the Red Sox, as much as some of us would love it. Every time there comes a manager opening, you hear, just hire Tech, just hire Tech. And I think I've come around to the point where I don't want him to ever be the manager of the Red Sox, because what comes with being a manager? So much criticism. If Jason Varitek became the manager of the Red Sox and did not win one, if not two, if not three World Series as the manager of the team, his reputation in the city would not quite be exactly what it is today. And what it is today is he's a god. He walks down the street. Everybody recognizes him. He is always got a positive image among everybody that talks to him. He won't even sign. What is the one autograph that I wish I could ever have? It is a signed picture of the Varitek punch in A-Rod's face. Mm-hmm. He will not sign that picture because he talks about it, how it is one of the least proud moments of his career, and he wouldn't want to endorse that moment as something that he's remembered for because he has kids that he needs to be a role model for. And to me, that's even more powerful than the autograph picture. That is everything that Varitek has been for this franchise since he was a player and now as a coach.
Absolutely. Well, Parker, we got through 3 hours of this. What is your biggest takeaway? Like, how do you leave this feeling and thinking?
My biggest takeaway from it is that I wrote in the show notes, I said inject it into my veins. And what did I mean by that was I need this environment to exist again in Red Sox baseball. I need another vocal brotherhood, media darling team that the Red Sox and Boston baseball fans can rally behind like I need oxygen to breathe. I genuinely think that this has been a thing that has been missing from this team for a long time. As a Red Sox fan, you can't go a week without seeing a clip of the dancing outfield in 2018. You can't go a week without seeing a clip of Poppy saying this is our fucking city in 2013. You can't go a week without seeing John Lester's comeback from cancer to pitch in Game 4 of the World Series in 2007. And you definitely can't go a week without seeing something about the 2004 Sox. Every single one of those World Series championships has had a feeling to it, has had just a story behind it. And I'm sure that's for every fan of every team out there. But as a Red Sox fan, I need more of that, because right now, over the last couple of years, it really felt like we lost our way. We've had guys that felt like the captain, like Xander Bogaerts, walk away from the team. And we've had a weird environment where it seems like we're in this holding pattern, waiting for younger guys to come up and hopefully create a culture like that in our organization to move forward. And when it's missing is when you notice it the most. During the good old days, you never know that they're the good old days until they're over. And I think that I'm just dying for another good old days in Boston watching baseball.
Sure. Wow, that is very well said. Very well said. I think the only thing I'll add to it is just about baseball more broadly. I mean, for me, watching this, it reminded me about everything I love about the sport. It reminded me of the fact that this sport, and I say this probably coming from a biased point of view, but this sport more than any other sport is one where the improbable seemingly happens often, where the come from behind wins, the rallying together of 26 guys is just so important, and seeing that all play out in this condensed format and all the feelings and thoughts and strategy that went into this and the personalities, man, it highlighted everything I love about baseball in 3 hours. Seriously,
100%.
Like it did, and it reminded me why I love this game so goddamn much.
When the documentary ended, for some reason I thought it was 4 episodes instead of 3 hour-long episodes.
I also
so
thought
when the documentary ended, it was episode 3 ended, and I went to go click on starting episode 4, and it wasn't there, and I was heartbroken. I was like, oh no, I want to spend more time with this team, man. I can't believe the effect that it had in such a short period of time. I watched it in 3 consecutive hours last night. I got home from work, I turned it on, I went to bed when it was over. And the cool part about this, and the thing that gets me excited, the Netflix documentary crew was with the Red Sox over this past season. And I think the intention is to do like a Full Swing or Drive to Survive style documentary on the 2024 Red Sox. And if it's done as well, or even a quarter as well as this comeback documentary was, I think I'm going to be very satisfied, and I'm going to be really excited to watch it.
Well, we are definitely gonna do this again when that comes out. I'm looking forward to that. Folks, we've given you an hour of our time, and you should be very grateful because we have just talked the shit out of the comeback, and we cannot do it anymore tonight because we are deep into the night. So, folks, do us a favor, please, 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 please. Wherever you listen to this show, go ahead and leave us a review. Keep them good. We appreciate it, and why don't you share with someone in your life? Your friend, your neighbor, your family member, your dog, whoever it is, please tell them the great stuff that we're doing here at the Late Night Baseball Show. And we will catch you next week to talk more baseball. Peace out.